Greetings and welcome back to the Casual Wargamer. And today we are going to do a quick little run through of our local store tournament, our GamesHub tournament from 2 Saturdays ago, from the, because dates are not my best, from the 7th. I'm a little late in putting this up, so forgive me, but let's take a look. So I decided this time round to do something a little bit different. I always take Anvil Siege Force pretty much, or occasionally the Gladius Task Force, but I wanted to do something a bit different, make a change. So I decided to go with the Iron Storm Spearhead, tank-based detachment, or the tank vehicle, or whatever you want to do it. I thought this would be quite cool. The idea, I could take a Tech Marine, I could take 2 big tanks, walk them up the table, boosting them, healing them, and doing all manner of goodness to the enemy. So I wrote my list out, which I'll go through shortly. And although we don't need to submit lists because we're very casual, but I thought I'm going to lock myself in. I'm not going to have any doubt. This is the list I'm playing. And then a few days before the tournament, Mr. Julian, our store owner, went, we've got the new deck of cards. We're going to play Asymmetrical War for a bit of fun and giggles. So I was like, this is going to make things interesting. And the way he did it was we had 4 tables. He'd pre-drawn 4 setups with the deployment, special rule, and the twist. And so each table was different, and everybody would get to play on a different table over the course of the day. And the terrain was set up in accordance to the deployment, which actually I found was probably about the only thing that I didn't particularly like, because it did make it very difficult for me anyway. I can't speak for anyone else. But we'll come to that a bit further. So my list then. So Tech Marine with Master of the Machine War. So not only am I boosting my tanks, I can pick one of them and go, you can advance and charge. Advance and still shoot. And the idea is he would be sitting at the back with 2 tanks and basically walk up with them, boosting them, doing all good stuff. Terminator Librarian with the flesh is weak, so he himself just gets a 4-up invulnerable save, which absolutely did me nothing all game. With a unit of 5 Terminators sitting in Deep Strike, and I took a Blade Guard Ancient, this little dude. So it was only his second time out, because generally I don't rate him, but I thought he's been sitting on my shelf for ages. I've not even finished painting the base. He's that bad. I thought let's give him some love, give him some time, and he joined a group of 6 Blade Guard to give him a bit of a boost. And for my battle line, because you've always got to have a battle line, I took 3 units of 5 heavy intercessors, each with a heavy bolter, and 1 intercessor squad to sit on my home objective if I had one. So 6 Blade Guard, as I mentioned, they are going in my Spartan. Because, hey, nothing says I love you like 8 laser cannons to the face, followed by a group of guys with swords. 5 Hellblasters in a drop pod. A unit of Inceptors with assault bolters, because I still think that's better than the plasma. And a Redempted Dreadnought with the plasma incinerator, and a Repulsor Executioner with the big heavy laser cannon. And my idea was the 2 tanks, Tech Marine, we'll see. The problem was, I submitted my list. As I said, we don't have to, but I did it, so I focused. The terrain layouts were absolutely useless to me for trying to move 2 tanks and a Tech Marine in unison. So I had to kind of forgo that and try and have them snake their way through things, which it sort of worked in a way, but it wasn't the way I had hoped to play. So I might keep this list for the next tournament in July and see what happens. So round 1, and I get paired with a new player. He's only in his teens, still at school, and he plays in an after-school club. This was his first tournament. His first time, I think, actually playing anything that wasn't just kill the enemy. So he was a little bit out of his depth, surrounded by much more experienced players, with a Cao Yon detachment, which was heavily built up of battle suits. I don't think he had a single battle line infantry. He had some breaches, but I don't think they're battle line. It was mainly things like Riptides, battle suits. He had a Storm Surge. It was big things, big guns, blow things off the table, which doesn't help all the time when you've got missions to achieve. Deployment for this was pincer attack. He had this like triangular deployment zone with like an arrowhead with a bit cut out the back, which I thought was quite interesting because if you draw behind enemy lines, you have to be in the deployment zone. So that little cutout at the back doesn't count. So, let's hope I don't need to try and drop in anywhere like that. And I had like 2 blocks at the end, if you haven't seen that particular deployment layout. So we were all fairly hidden from each other from the get-go. Martial Pride was the twist, which basically means that battle line units can advance and do actions and shoot and do actions, which really played in for me because all of my battle line, all my heavy and intercessor, have heavy and assault, so I could run forwards, daka, and still do anything. And the primary mission was Holdout, which off the top of my head, I think was more or less objective holding. In this particular game, as I mentioned slightly earlier, I think it was much more a case of inexperience versus experience, not being familiar with match play. He made some mistakes. I did try and help out and point things out, and I did kind of tone myself down a little bit because I didn't want to be that guy like in his first tournament, his first opponent. But sometimes there's very little you can do, and the tanks basically blasted through his battle suits and his Riptides. One Riptide took out the Repulsor Executioner, and the Tech Marine suddenly got very angry with his axe, ran up and killed it. That particular game came out as a 60-29 win to me. I think the lack of battle line and being able to get up onto objectives and do actions really hurt. I was able to basically, I was throwing secondaries, or completing secondaries, I should say, as well as grabbing objectives quite easily. He seemed to enjoy it, though, even so. And although this particular opponent did not win any games, I believe he is coming back in our July tournament at the beginning of the month to try his luck again. So power on him. He didn't get put off by being absolutely annihilated. So power on him. That was what I was expecting. That's my win of the game. That's my win of the day, rather. Let's move on. So, round 2, and there were a couple of people I didn't particularly want to face. Not the players themselves, it was the armies. One was 1,000 Suns. It was a detachment I hadn't played yet, so there was that. The other was an Eldari war host, and I struggle against Eldari. I've been playing a fair few games against them lately in friendlies and the like, and in Crusade games, and they absolutely annihilate me. Absolutely. So I didn't really, and 1,000 Suns annihilate me as well. So I didn't really want to face them. And who did I get? Mr. Charles with his Eldari Warhost. And I'm thinking, okay, at least it's not 1,000 Suns. I'm not going to die to mortal wounds. Bring it. This particular game, really interesting deployment. Tip of the spear. So basically my opponent has this tiny little block at the far end of the table, and I have nearly half the table on this side, which would have made it really easy for him to achieve behind enemy lines. So basically I had this huge block of deployment and I've got to push it forwards. The twist was Ruinscape, which means that anything can walk through a ruin providing it can end up in a legal position. Well, guess what? The tanks can't do that because the way the terrain was laid out, they would never have been in a legal position at the end of the movement. So I still had to go around everything. And the primary objective was establish control, which off the top of my head, I think again was another objective holding one, but I can't remember what the special rules were for it. Still new to me, so bear with. So this was quite brutal, I think. It wasn't. It was more the fact of Eldari being able to jump out, especially things like the Dark Reapers being able to pop out, go dakka with the missile launchers, and then disappear and run away, and often jump back in transport, and not being able to overwatch things like Banshees and so forth, and anything coming up to get in within range. The Eldari could just... I think it was just a lot easier for them to move things than I could. I was kind of very much funneled, which didn't help. I did inflict some casualties, but Eldari just really just went through my Marines in shooting and in combat. There wasn't a lot I could do, and he really focused down on my tanks, which was probably the one thing the two things I should say, that would have helped me in this game. Ultimately, Mr. Charles took a 77-33 win. Now, bear in mind, I forgot to mention this earlier, we don't do painting scores in our tournaments to try and keep it fair for people who don't enjoy painting or are new to the hobby. So all of these scores, technically, you could add 10 points on because everybody had painted lists. But he got a very well-deserved win. It was a very frustrating game because I just kind of felt I couldn't do anything against them, which is generally the sense. It wasn't just this game. It's what I generally feel playing against Eldari at the moment anyway. They may be squishy, but they hit like a brick and they run away so you can't touch them, which is not nice. It's not fair. Third game. So I've had one win, one loss. I'm happy with the win at the end of the day. That's what matters. And I drew my friend, Mr. Robin, who I normally used to play against a lot in our tournaments. And then for some reason, he's done so much better than previously. He's got so much better player that he ends up scoring more points, winning more games, and being further up, so I don't get to play him. So this time I was actually pleased we could do it. And he brought the Wrath of the Rock, the new detachment at the time of doing this, with the Lion in tow. We got Breakout, which is an interesting deployment. I, as the defender, which was perfect for me, being an Imperial Fist successor, which basically this block running down the middle of the table, and he has to come in. He's on the very ends with very short deployment. The table was set up with this big ruin in the middle that I was basically garrisoning. And if I'd been playing Anvil Siege Force, this would have been an even bigger advantage for me. As it was, the tanks were fairly pointless in this. They could just sort of like drive around the top and the bottom of the ruin, and the way the ruin was sort of laid out actually ended up being a little bit of a pain in the backside for me. But not going to complain too much. Point Blank was our twist, which was anything that isn't blast becomes pistol. So nice, all of my guns can be fired pretty much. And Siphoned Power was the objective, which means as the defender I start on 50 victory points, the attacker starts on nothing, and he has to do actions on objectives to siphon those points away from me and into his own victory pool. And the further you are in, the more points you can take. The problem with this being a new mission and all, you can't do it turn one, and round two, we both forgot that you could do it. So, and turn one, I was pulling off things like area denial and established locus in the middle of the table where I'm deployed. So I'm literally ranking in those points. And by the time we both forgot about this siphon power until it was a little too late. I was in a good position to gun down what he had coming in. Even the Lion went down to mass firepower once I got him away from other units. And at the end of this particular one, I took a 57-48 victory. It's an interesting one because secondaries, basically I was sat on like 3 objectives, and secondaries I was just pulling points in faster, I think, than Robin could take the points away from me. Then we had a little bit of a discussion about whether you should be able to add points to the defender's score. But I think if you don't, the defender will always win. I think I was just very, very lucky early on to get secondaries that played into me being the defender in that deployment. But the 57-48, I will take a win. It was a very good game. I always enjoy my games against Robin, especially when I crush the lion. So at the end of that particular day, I came third with 2 wins and a loss, which I was very pleased with. I won part of a chocolate bar. Yeah, so really good day. Where the asymmetrical war thing comes in, I don't think it's particularly suitable for tournament play, simply because some missions score more points than others. And if every table's different, then you're getting very different scores over the course of the day. Even if you get, we do 3 rounds, and with 4 tables, there's always going to be one table you don't get. And if that's the one that really scores high and you could have got it, I certainly think the deployments would be perfectly fine for regular tournament play. They'd be a bit different. I know some people would go, well, it's not fair. But to be honest, the whole point of this is for fun. I wouldn't recommend it for like the world tournament or the world championship or anything like that. But for a in-house tournament, as it were, I certainly think the deployment cards would be perfectly fine. I think the missions for asymmetrical war would not be, because they are a bit weird. But I like narrative play. I like things that are different, and this was actually very much playing into my the things I like in a game of 40k. Other than that, the only thing I would say, again, sort of like what I touched on at the beginning, is I kind of wish that the terrain had not been set up specifically based around each of the 4 tables. I actually think games are... I hate it when people do it in normal or like tournament or match play games. I think you should set a table up, not necessarily symmetrical. I'm not a big fan of tables being so symmetrical. But I certainly think you should set the table up, then determine the deployment and where objectives go. And if they're in the open, then they're in the open. If they're in behind cover or in terrain, then that's where they go. I think setting the table up, while interesting for the tournament, kind of, from my perspective, was quite hindering. But that might have just been the list, as I was trying to run 2 tanks together. But at the end of the day, this was an absolutely brilliant day's gaming. Feet aching at the end of it, you always know that that's a good sign. And to be able to pull 2 wins where I normally get 1 or none was top notch. So I'm thinking I might keep the list for the July tournament and see how it works in a regular sort of game, as to whether it does any good or not. Anyway, thank you for watching. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Throw some comments down below what your thoughts, if you've tried the asymmetrical stuff. Have you tried them in the tournament? Or are you completely opposed and anti them? Either way, let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, thank you for watching, everybody. Take care. Good gaming.